Well, the world is lit with controversy after the egregious display of mediocrity and stupidity that came out of the Canadian legislature when all of them, including Volodymyr Zelenskyy, who was there visiting, and Justin Trudeau, stood and applauded a former veteran of the World War II who happened to fight with the Nazis.
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98.
Now, this has caused debate about many things, and many commentators are focusing on if the Speaker Anthony Rota, who actually resigned due to the firestorm on this entire incident, if they actually knew about his background history, or if any of the MPs who stood up and applauded him, including the leaders of the Canadian government, also actually knew about his background history. But this is not the important question, my friends. And when we get bogged down in these temporary questions that are only of momentary significance, but not ones that are of eternal significance, we actually get away from the path of learning. There are learning experiences from anything that happened in life, and political events and things like this are no exception. I don't think that one can really analyze what happened in Canada not long ago as the posting of this video without first understanding the context surrounding that event. And indeed, we can call the politicians there stupid, we can call them ignorant, we can call them any insult you want in the book. But what we can't do from insulting them is understand why their behavior actually happened. And I think that this is actually an example of the destabilizing nature of sacred cows as it relates to what people believe when they act in accordance to those sacred cows, and how people act as well, how their actions are changed by those sacred cows. The context of that standing ovation was none other than a visit from Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president of Ukraine, to Canada's legislature to have a conversation, to have a speech about his efforts in the Ukraine. That is the context of the visit. And this veteran who fought for the Nazis, fought for Ukraine, was a Ukrainian, and therefore the connection was made. Well, this Ukrainian veteran is here, therefore, and we have the Ukrainian president here, and we support Ukraine, therefore, let's do a standing ovation to him as a statement of moral authority. That was the intention. But that intention was born of the sort of sacred cow of Ukraine. I call it Ukrainism, that has taken over the governments of the West by storm. Let's not forget, Zelenskyy went to several European nations, several NATO nations like Germany, and nations like also like Israel, and he used their history against them to get them to support his war effort. In Germany, for example, when Zelenskyy addressed the MPs there, he said that the words "never forget" relating to the Holocaust mean nothing if Germany does not support his war effort. So essentially, he ripped the scab off of Germany, which is one of the greatest stains on their history, is the Third Reich and what Hitler did, and he said, okay, if you don't want to repeat that, support me. How disingenuous, how manipulative do you have to be to use a nation's tragedy, not in a rational argument, but a tragedy against it? He went to Israel and invoked the Holocaust and tried to use that as a means of getting their support. Again, how disingenuous can you be to go to a majority Jewish nation and mention one of the most horrific tragedies that have happened in the history of that people to get them to support you? He went to America, my country, United States, and he said to Congress, he invoked Pearl Harbor and 9/11, two horrific events that changed the landscape of American society for worse and for good in some cases, depending on how you look at how we came together or how we look at what happened after those things, and he used those as a way to get our support. Zelenskyy went to Canada in 2022, and he tried to paint this vision of Vancouver and Edmonton and different Canadian provinces and cities being bombed and taken over to get them to support him. What's the point? The point is simple. Zelenskyy's method of getting support throughout the West has not been through rational argumentation. It has not been through appealing to the first principle of nationhood, which is self-preservation, and explaining in a logical way why nations have an interest in their own self-preservation being linked to Ukraine. No. He has simply used emotionally manipulative tactics to make them believe that if they don't help him, they are somehow reliving or repeating or affirming some tragedy from their past. Zelenskyy has used emotionalism to garner support for Ukraine. Now, let me say something before I continue. There are different sides on the Ukraine debate, and I do not mean to disparage anybody who has any particular opinion of whatever. My opinion is no. I do not believe that it is in America's national interest to keep funding Ukraine. I do not believe that it's in America's national interest to continue to push geopolitical strategy against certain entities, certain nations, to further the goals of the Atlantic Council and NATO and the UN. I believe those organizations have misled America ever since the post-war consensus was formed, ever since post-World War II, and they have led us down paths that have caused more chaos and destruction in the world. America is strong when it is protecting its own interests, and the world is strong when America is at its best. America is never at its best when our energy is split between different conflicts perpetually, which don't benefit the people, don't benefit the country, and don't preserve ourselves, but benefit the coffers of moneyed interests. That's my position. But having said that, this is an issue that people that I respect and love have different opinions about. But regardless of your opinion on Ukraine, regardless of your opinion on the conflict, one thing is non-negotiable and will remain non-negotiable with Christian Watson, and that is if you attempt to use emotional manipulation and trickery to get me to support you, it is evident to me that your cause is not of a righteous order. It is of something else that I want nothing to do with, and I want my nation to have nothing to do with it. The Canadian politicians stood up in that ovation within the context of an emotionally led affection for Ukraine. And that sacred cow of benevolence precisely made them numb to the fact that this individual could have a history that goes beyond the surface. You see, when you pair political mediocrity, because we can assume that many politicians, by virtue of them being politicians, have accepted a certain standard of mediocrity that makes them not want to push for the truth, that makes them not want to push for higher ideas, but simply makes them want to maintain their hold on power in the pursuit of political expediency. This is a political truism that is true across many countries. It's true in Canada, it's true in America. So we've already accepted that. That's well established. But when you pair that normative behavior that most politicians exude with a sacred cow, they are even less inclined to look at that sacred cow critically and ask, is this something that I need to look at deeply to understand it? They simply presume understanding. They simply presume benevolence. And this is what I wish to leave all of you with. Sacred cows are dangerous to rational thought. Sacred cows do not exist because you have decided by some objective value that their existence is necessary for some good. Sacred cows primarily exist because a society or people or individuals have decided that that one thing has some kind of emotional significance, some kind of spiritual significance that cannot and should not be questioned without a injustice and a great evil being committed. When you go to different countries and you say, if you don't help me, you are reliving national tragedies, this no longer becomes a matter of debate, it becomes a matter of survival and integrity. Because when someone's integrity is on the line, that is, they're going to have a different calculus than if an idea by itself is on the line. We have marred and blurred the distinctions between the personal and the political so much in the West that has come from the movements that happened in the 60s, the sort of postmodern movements that have tried to phrase every single thing, including principles, including power, within the context of society and social structures, as opposed to understanding there is a God beyond our society. There is a world beyond society that sets these things that we can discover if we wish to understand that. We've moved so far away from that idea, and we become so bogged down in social construction and relativism and all of this nonsense that we now see ourselves as linked to certain ideas or certain causes, so that when you don't support Ukraine, it's no longer you not having a position, it's you not being a good person. Sacred cows can destabilize you to the point where you can't see yourself as distinct from any major cause of a society. And he who does not know himself cannot possibly know the world. The Canadian Parliament, Canadian legislature, we must understand, they have been captured by the specter of sacred cows. Many places in the West have been captured by the specter of sacred cows. Regardless of what your position is on this war, one thing is important. We cannot continue to allow sacred cows and emotionalism to lead our actions. Because not only do they not lead our actions anywhere good, they lead us ultimately to a point of self-destruction that is evident in the implication of them. And that is man rejecting his reason and sacrificing it on the altar of the current thing. And in my opinion, we should run as far away from the current thing as possible and towards truth, towards justice, towards what is right, what is moral. Because that will set us on a better path than any temporal fascination our society may have. My friends, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel. If you want to help me get my message out there, be free to also donate on my PayPal, Patreon. Join my locals community, which will help me a lot. Join my Discord, which is in the comment section down below. I love you guys so much, and please, 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 please study philosophy, study history, remain rational, and most importantly, stay pensive. Bye all.